Perfect. I'll be able to get into the cricket with this chair now.
This is the Ryobi 18 volt reciprocating high power saw. This is not the brushless version. It sits in the middle of Ryobi's range, retailing for $199 here in New Zealand. So it runs off Ryobi's 18 volt battery range, and I like to team this tool up with a smaller battery. So this is the 2.5 amp hour here. Because it is quite a heavy tool, it's nice to have a smaller battery on there because otherwise you are dealing with quite a lot of weight. It has a safety lock on the top, so that's your lock. That's unlock, and what's quite nice is it has a variable trigger. And what I like about the variable trigger is it's really nice when you're easing into your cuts. Start off slow before you work it up to full power. Now to change your blade on the system is really easy. This is a tool-free system by Ryobi. So basically you've got this clamp and you have to put some pressure on it. It will click back on you, but if you hold that clamp, you can slide your blade, which is supplied, one wood cutting blade, by Ryobi into the top there. You let go of that clamp, pop it down, and your blade is affixed to the tool. Now this is obviously a variable trigger, and the strokes per minute go, because it's variable, from 0 to 2,900. The length of the stroke is 28 millimeters, and the maximum cut capacity that this tool is rated for wood is 200 millimeters, so you should be able to cut through some fairly large items. Now this is a really heavy tool. It's quite nice to actually hold it by its handle here, but it is heavy. So what you'll probably want to do with this, unless you are doing a lot of cutting, is you'll want to team it up with one of Ryobi's lighter batteries. This one here is the 2.5 amp hour. If you've only got a few cuts to do, I think that's the way you want to use this tool. What we'll do is we'll show you how this works cutting through a bit of wood, and we'll also show you how this can be used with some third-party blades to cut through something a bit stronger, the likes of nails or screws.
So we'll just smack a few nails into here, and then we'll see if we can chop them off with that with a metal blade on there. So I've just banged a little nail into the back of the seat here. I have swapped this blade out for a metal cutting blade, and we'll just trim this nail off. So that's pretty easy there. That just, I don't know if it snapped off or if I actually cut it off, but I've lost it in the grass now. But I suppose if you had like things like decking where you had, or old decking that you wanted to remove and it was attached to, I don't know, side of the house or whatever, and you wanted to chop some of that decking off, you could easily chop through the nails and things like that with one of these blades. So I'll put some screws in, something a bit bigger, and I'll see if we can get rid of those as well. So as you can see there, we did find it in the grass, and it has chopped probably 90% of that screw there, and it's just snapped at the little end there. So something of this gauge would be perfect to chop off. So here's a real common example. So say this screw here was holding a bit of timber to the chair, but this top bit of timber had come away and you're left with this little screw sticking out. You can get your blade in underneath that screw and you should be able to chop the head of it off. Just like that. So if you're cutting a lot of timber back to back, this machine can get quite hot, and it being a brushed motor can smell like it's sort of burning, but that's just what happens with this type of motor. If you want to alleviate that problem, you'd go for more of a brushless type motor, and that's if you're going to do high volumes of cutting, and therefore it seems to be that motor is a little bit more efficient. I have noticed just cutting these few things at times to start the cut, it can be quite clunky. Bearing in mind this chair is just free sitting on the ground here, so if you did have it in a vise or it was attached to, I don't know, half your house or attached to a fence or something that gave it a bit more rigidity and was a bit more solid, then cutting this would be a little bit easier. But I'm going to trim the whole back of this chair off here and we'll see how we get on here. And there we are, I've just cut the whole back of this chair off, and that was pretty easy, bearing in mind it wasn't sort of attached to anything or being held in a vise.
So that's a quick overview of a couple of really common use cases for this reciprocating saw, obviously cutting through some wood, some screws and nails that we just did. And I bought this tool because I had some decking to remove, so I'm really glad that I went with this model. It's only seen about 30 minutes of use time, I reckon, to get that decking out. There was no need for me to step it up to the brushless motor.
And that's exactly the key. So if you're going to use this tool not very often, then you probably want to stick with the brush motor. If you were going to use it often, you'd spend a little bit more money and you'd step that up to the brushless version.
Yeah, so Ryobi here in New Zealand make 3 versions of this. So obviously this being middle of the range, it has 40% more power than the standard, so I'm glad I went in the middle. But you're paying $100 more for that brushless motor. So I think that this, for me, was the right choice to go with.
Absolutely. So that's it from Omni Garage. Stay tuned for the next video. Thanks for watching.